Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's Arkansas Enabling Technology Speaker Series. Pleased to bring back Alaina Gallagher, and she's going to be talking about technology in rooms of the home. Alaina, it is all yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I am going to share my screen. Make sure that this is working. Let's see here. There we go. All right, just to make sure, you guys, oh no,
yes, we can see it.
Okay. Are you seeing an infinity mirror? It was just warning me you might see an infinity mirror. Okay. That's my Teams or my Google Meet is confused. All right. Wonderful. And you're not seeing the speaker view, correct?
No.
Perfect. All right. Well, we will get started. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm happy to be back. So we figured since the last time I presented, we did a specific room of the house focusing really on kitchen technology. We thought we would expand it to other popular rooms in most people's homes. So today we will be covering the bedroom, living room, and bathroom. And I also just put a note on in case you weren't able to attend the last presentation I did was on October 31st. That one was focused on independence in the kitchen. So I would encourage you to jump into the folder and pull up that. Paul also sent out the recording and the slide deck in a follow-up email. So to get started, let's look at some bedroom technology. One of the things that I focused on at the start was getting dressed, because most people do get dressed in their bedroom. And I think this is a really big area that you can look at and consider for increased independence. Just think about how many people you support that are using assistants to get dressed, and the consideration of could some of these adaptive aids help them dress themselves, and how great would that be if somebody had that control and that ability to do so. So the first one that I have, this is just an example of a device that helps you pull up your pants. This one obviously has extended straps. They make many different versions of these. So depending on, how hard the person's going to have to pull up their pants, what types of materials of their clothing, you may want to consider what clamps they have to connect to the pants themselves. So that's a factor worth considering, as well as you can kind of see up here at the top how he is, there we go, up here, how he's holding dual straps singularly in each hand. I've also seen different straps that will make it more adapted. So maybe it's a full U strap in case somebody can't independently use both arms or things like that. So different considerations for what could work for that. Another option for pulling on pants is this wing on pant aid. And this might be a better option for somebody who's really, really going to have to tug and is more likely that those clamps that hold on their pants are not going to stay on. So just an alternative option for them to be able to pull up their own pants. And then looking at socks, this is a big one, especially if somebody has to wear compression socks. I don't know if any of you have had to put on compression socks, but I have. And even for me, that can be super difficult to put them on and pretty uncomfortable on your hands and fingers, right? So this sock on is a pretty amazing device. Some people are able to still put the sock on itself to prepare themselves to get it on. Some other people, maybe that's where they'll still have aid, is somebody putting the sock onto the sock on, but that still gives them the independence to be able to pull the sock on when they're ready to put it on. So they make different versions of this. This is just kind of the more popular one, but just options to get people into their own socks. Another one, I think this one's probably the first one most of us are familiar with, is a shoehorn. And that's just so that somebody doesn't necessarily have to bend down if they want to put their shoes on. It protects the back of their shoes too. So somebody who is pretty sensitive to overstimulation, if that back of their heel gets bent at all, I know for some people that can overstimulate and be very frustrating. So a shoehorn can also protect the shoe while the person's putting it on and keep them from that overstimulation. So it kind of works in twofold ways. And then we've got the dressing stick here as well. This one is really cool because it's pretty versatile to be able to use for multiple things. The main design is to help somebody pull on clothing on the upper part of their body. So you see here a coat. I've seen it also used to help people with their shoes and things like that. So it's kind of a versatile tool. it has a little hook. And so that's how he's hooked onto his jacket to be able to pull it up over his shoulders. And then this button hook and zipper pull, I absolutely love this device. I personally cannot get it to work for me. I have tried many times. I make a fool of myself in person every time I try to get it to button, but I have seen people do this very, very successfully. Basically, it slides into the button and then they just pull it through, and it buttons up their shirts for somebody who maybe that fine motor skill would be very difficult. And then the zipper pull, this is one that has it 2-in-1. I see a lot of these that can help the person hook a zipper and pull it up. I've also seen zipper pulls that have really extended bars and things like that for somebody who maybe has to pull a zipper pull up the back and things like that. All right. Other specific more for bedroom aids. So one of the areas that we see a lot is people needing assistance into bed, maybe because they've got paralysis from their lower body down or things like that. So a leg lifter can actually be kind of an amazing tool to allow people to get themselves into bed. This is just very, very simple sling style device, right? That allows it to hook over somebody's foot, and they can then hoist their legs into bed using their upper body. So it can really make a difference for somebody to be able to do that independently. It can also be good for people who aren't paralyzed, right? Somebody who maybe has neuropathy or issues where like their legs lock up or different things. This could be a good option for that. Moving into the self-turning bed. So just a note, this device is pretty expensive. So it likely is not something that our grant could cover the cost of, but I have in other states seen Medicaid authorize these devices. So I think it was really, I wanted to include it because I've seen it make such a big difference for people. So this self-turning bed does exactly what it says. Instead of having to have somebody maybe stay overnight, maybe that's the only reason somebody has overnight staff, is to help the individual turn in beds. This bed will do it for them. So not only are we looking at the potential to increase independence because you're removing the need potentially for somebody to be in the home, it's also just better for the individual. They're left alone. There's that independence of being able to stay in their bedroom and not having people come in and out all through the night. And a lot of people report that their sleep is much better because now it's not a person coming in, and people are a lot rougher than a mechanical machine that slowly turns them. Many people can stay asleep while the device does its thing. So an alternative for bed sores, and one that could be authorized through the grant because it's much more affordable. It may not be appropriate for everybody. I think there is weight limits and things like that for this type of device. And also it's not doing direct turns. What this one does is it actually blows air through individualized compartments, and it can change up where it's going to have that air blowing through the different compartments to allow different pressure, right? So in theory, it's doing the same idea as a turn with avoiding bed sores. But again, if somebody would be much more better positioned onto their side or something like that, then this is not going to be a good device for them. And then I included a bed pressure pad. Along the lines of this, I'm just going to note, I didn't have as much slide space, but things like door sensors, motion sensors, floor pads, things like that. These can be really great for people who maybe it's going to be a risk if they get out of bed. So using these types of systems can alert somebody that they're getting out of bed. And that can be used through a remote support system. So somebody off-site receiving those alerts, where they can then call the individual, or they can send on-site staff to support the person, or they can also be used with on-site staff. A lot of these companies make what we call like locally sounding alarms. We do not recommend, I really, really can't stress this, I do not recommend having a device. This is kind of older school devices where it sounds an alarm right at the site, because that's really aggravating to individuals. That can be really disruptive to their roommates. People can get really embarrassed about it. So they make these devices now where it has a pager, so it can still alert on-site caregivers, but you can set it to be an alarm. You can set it to vibrate. You can change the alarm levels, the alarm type, things like that. That can save so much frustration for the individual and embarrassment, or for their roommates and all that. So if you're going to use these locally, I do recommend looking into those devices with the pager system. So moving on, so this SAMI alert device is a really, really incredible tool for somebody who has seizures at night. It is probably the most widely used device by like a lot of the epilepsy foundations and things like that throughout the United States. And what it does is it's using a camera. So you would have to make sure that that's allowed to have a camera in the individual's bedroom and that the individual consents to all of that. But it's really, really intelligent. It's looking at super micro changes for the individual throughout their sleep to determine if it's possible they're having a seizure. They're also using this to develop more further. I don't think it's out yet, but to do things like detecting sleep apnea, detecting other sleep-related risks and things like that. And from what I've been told, they've got tens of thousands of users already doing this. And so since it's also an AI learning device, it gets smarter and smarter and smarter as it goes. It's a really excellent way to detect potential seizures when somebody's in bed. There are alternatives to this. There is something called the MFit bed pad. I don't have it on here. That's a bed pad system that detects rapid movement. I've heard it's not as reliable, but it's a good option. A lot of times overnight seizures go undetected by staff because unless they happened to be checking on the person at the time that the seizure was occurring, or the person maybe was really like, unfortunately banging on something and getting that person's attention, a lot of times it's kind of luck of the draw if you know that that person's having an overnight seizure. And so using some of these overnight systems can be extremely beneficial. Actually, quick story on how this was developed. It's a family who did it for brother and son. It's a parent and kid duo who started the company. And they actually originally set up the system because the doctors were not trusting them or were not believing them that the brother was having seizures. And so the family set it up to be able to record and prove that the seizures were happening to the doctor. And what they discovered was he was having a lot of seizures regularly at night. They were able to take that data. So this has also been used to help with like data and stuff like that for people. So moving on, Amazon Alexa, I just have to highlight it because it's such a great tool for bedroom spaces, right? So if somebody is more bedbound or once they get into bed, it's harder for them to get out of bed. Setting up a device with smart home features is so crucial, right? Being able to turn on and off their lights, being able to turn on and off their fan. Maybe it's also turning on soothing sounds or music or noise machine, you know, whatever they want to use it for. Controlling their blinds, bringing their blinds up and down, right? Just don't rule out how helpful these types of devices can be. Alrighty. And then we are going to move on to the living room. There we go. In the living room, obviously a lot can take place. And I just highlighted a few different options, but there are so many, right? And it's really dependent. Living rooms vary on how people use them. So this one was a harder room to like highlight. But one of the big ones that we've seen actually already being requested and used in this grant period is the Able Tray. I've seen this device in action and it's really, really cool because not only is it like a tray where people can hold stuff. So if somebody is more, once they get settled into their chair, it's harder for them to get up. It's dangerous for them to get up. They refuse to get up, whatever it is. You have that little tray, which is nice because then they have the option to have things in front of them and have easy access. And maybe it is that somebody would get up and it's dangerous for them to because they're a fall risk. You can put those things that more commonly were getting them to get up out of their chair right next to them. But also, if you can kind of see in here, this is an anchor-based system. So it connects, like it goes all the way back under the couch or under the chair or under the bed, wherever you're going to use this, to really anchor this down so that the person can use it to stand up and they can put pressure on it or to sit down, and it swivels. So you can also use it as a turning device. Maybe somebody's going to use that to get into a wheelchair so that it's safer for them to be transported or, you know, whatever it is, this is just a safe way to do that. And it looks like furniture, so it's not really like disruptive to the person's living environment. Simplified remote controls can be really, really helpful for people being able to control their own TVs. You can drop it down to something as simple as on and off and volume control. This one has on, off, volume control and scroll through, right? So that could be for channels, that could be for apps and things like that. And they make different versions of this that can be connected to not only the TV, but the TV and the fan at the same time, right? Or whatever it is that that person could be controlling in their house. Also with TV, you can get voice controlled TVs, and these can be really, really beneficial for somebody because while this simplified device is nice, it might not allow you to jump through. Maybe that person has multiple apps on their smart TV that they want to jump through, or they want to search something on YouTube to watch or something like that, right? This gives them just a little bit more flexibility and control. And then, of course, I think a lot of living rooms are used for playtime too and like having fun. So don't forget that like adapted games and things like that exist if somebody wants to be able to engage in that. Now, coming back to grant funds and things like that, if something is just being used for diversionary and recreation, it is typically something that has to be paid for out of pocket. So just keep that in mind. But again, I wanted to highlight it because I don't want that kind of stuff to be forgotten in this process, that things like that exist. Now, where I have seen some of these authorized in other states and paid for through the waiver plans under assistive technology is if the games or the devices that they're using in gaming format are being used for education and learning to get the person engaged, to get the person like, maybe it's learning for reading or mathematics or things like that. So like more educational games that's really leading into their health and safety and their independence pieces. I also have the Claris Companion. Thank you, Amy, for introducing me to this. This one's a really cool device that not only is it like kind of a standard tablet where you can do communication and things like that to caregivers or loved ones, but it also is something that has options for entertainment and to challenge people's minds and things like that. So I've seen it used a lot for people who maybe are getting really depressed. They're feeling excluded from like the community or their lives or things like that. So Amy's kind of an expert on this. If you guys have questions, I'm just going to throw it out there. Maybe Amy can answer some of them too on this call today. And then of course the smart thermostat, right? This can be really, really beneficial for somebody who has issues controlling their body temperature, where maybe they do need to adjust their temperature more regularly. That can be also risky. So it's obviously very, very person dependent. This can also be helpful for somebody who is going to be leaving the home and maybe they do have memory issues, and being able to have that comfort that, or I mean, it could be something like obsessive compulsive disorder, like a discomfort where it could cause mental distress if they don't know what they left their home temperatures at. I mean, lots of considerations with these devices. Now, moving into the bathroom, I talk a lot about bathroom technology because I think this is an area where we see so much caregiving taking place. And at the same time, it's probably the place that most of us wouldn't want a caregiver to be aiding us. So I really try to look at different areas and different ways creatively to meet the person's needs to allow them more independence in the bathroom. So you guys, y'all have, if you've attended any of my presentations, you've heard me talk about bidets because I think they are such a clear way for many, many people. Obviously, it's not going to be the best option for every single person, but it can be very effective at allowing people to clean up after themselves after they go to the bathroom, which may be the main reason they're relying on staff to come into the bathroom and assist them. So this can bring back a lot of dignity, avoid embarrassment, and just that independence piece is huge. Also, just in general, bidets have been shown to decrease UTIs, decrease infections and things like that. So even with somebody cleaning up after somebody, bidets still sometimes are considered a more cleanly option. Motion soap dispensers. So this is really great, right? Obviously, if somebody has a hard time pumping, or maybe it's going to be dangerous for them to overreach, right? Like that motion can cause falls for people versus just putting their hand out, right? Like if you think about that twisting motion, somebody with dizziness or somebody with imbalance, that could be a fall risk right there. So being able to put your hand out and have your soap dispensed can make a huge difference. Also, don't rule these out for use in the shower, right? Soap or body soap, shampoo, conditioner, those kinds of things can be put into these devices as well so that the person, maybe they struggle with squeezing the bottle. Maybe they can't pump a bottle, and that was the alternative to the squeezy. This could be a good option for bringing that independence as well. And of course, adapted cleaning aids, right? So a lot of the times people are using staff, maybe because, so I'll use the example of my own niece, right? She has a hard time if she has to raise her hands. She gets about here on her head, and then she's absolutely exhausted with her physical ailments. So by the time she's supposed to get to the back of her head, she can't really do it. She gets exhausted, and maybe that part stays dirty. So using adapted cleaning aids, she can hold her hand down here and have an extended handle brush that she can use to clean her head and use her shampoo and everything. This one that I highlight is a body option, so that you can do that. I've also seen, and I love it, something that you can attach to the shower wall. It can be different sizes, and it has bristles, and you can put soap on it and everything, so that you can rub up against it if you can't hold things, right? So maybe it is that staff helps the person get soap on it, and then the person rubs against it to clean themselves, right? It's finding what's appropriate, what's going to obviously get the person clean and be safe for them, but also considering options to let them be independent in that. Water sensors can be a big help for people who the concern is more so that they might not know to turn the water off. They might not know to turn the tub off. Maybe they're going to take a bath, they're going to run that, but caregivers, family members, they're concerned that, hey, this person's going to flood the bathroom. We've seen them leave the kitchen or the sink on for too long and it's flooded, things like that. Just peace of mind, really. So that water sensor can alert out as soon as water is detected in its space. I have them in all of my homes. They're amazing. They give me huge peace of mind, right? Like that I will be alerted if anything starts to leak immediately. I'm in a condo, so if I leak, I destroy units under me, right? So these can be really helpful for things like that. And then, of course, if you aren't familiar with this, this is a pretty cool tool. It is a full mouth electric toothbrush. So it looks like, as you can see, like a mouth guard, and it has bristles on all edges of the teeth. So in the front, in the back, in the front, and in the back on the top and bottom. And you put it in, you turn it on, and it vibrates and cleans the teeth in 30 seconds. So instead of somebody who might get overstimulated or might not doing a good job, maybe it's that they can't really move their hands, it's getting exhausted. This can be a really good tool. I think the first example that was shared with me for this was children with autism who get really overstimulated by things being in their mouth for too long. It's can they tolerate it for 30 seconds? Would this be a good option for them? Because then it's done quicker. Otherwise, we've used this for many other purposes. I will say, my sister's a dentist. She's talked about this before. It's not the greatest device. You're not going to get the cleanest teeth, but this is a great option for somebody who's already really poorly doing their dental hygiene. Otherwise, too, just in general, regular electric toothbrushes are amazing. From the dentist recommendation, it's Oral-B. Go with those ones because they do both the moving and the vibrating. So yeah, that's just a fun side fact. And then fall detection. So a lot of times too, maybe the reason that somebody's having staffing overnight or having staffing in the daytime or getting that support in the bathroom is because of fall risk. And the concern is, well, if we leave them to it and they have a fall, we won't know because we can't put a camera in there. It's going to be more difficult. Maybe this person doesn't open and close their door, so you can't just put a door sensor. And maybe motion sensors have been tried in the past and they get ignored. Fall detection devices use like radar technology to be able to see if somebody had a fall and alert out. And since they don't use cameras, you can put them in bathrooms. So that's a really excellent option to kind of help with that as well. All right, and that's all I have, but I would love to open it up for questions. And obviously, please feel free to email me if you guys have any questions at all.
Just checking the chat. I see Jennifer said something that she loves everything about this. Jennifer, I was curious, was it a specific thing or was just the presentation in general?
I mean, the whole presentation, but that last slide about how, because I think I see it from like a review perspective in terms of like the ADL supports that our providers are having to do. But I think that, there's a lot of options out there of these devices that just make that person more independent. Again, it's not taking away the role of, the support professional. It just helps them to have some more dignity, set them up with the ability to be more independent. And I think it's great. And if people wanted to send over authorization requests for things like this to CareSource, I would be all for it.
Yay, I love to hear that. You heard it here first, folks.
You heard it here first. I like it. I love it. I love all the stuff that you've shown.
Thank you.
What a ringing endorsement of a presentation that is. Thank you, Jennifer. Other questions for Alaina on all this great stuff? Okay, we'll certainly reach out to her or the other SMEs. Those of us of a certain age will remember, like, one of the first internet search engines was Ask Jeeves. Look that up, it's pre-Google. And when it comes to assistive tech, for me, it is literally Ask Alaina, because I appreciate how much info you have in your head and your exposure to all of these tools and how many you've actually used yourself.
Thank you.
Not just you, but our all of our SMEs. So just it's fantastic to be able to lean on you for all of this info. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, that was a long time ago. Yeah.
You know what's funny is the way that I Google search for assistive technology, my husband teases me so much. He says, it's like I'm asking Jeeves, because I'll be like, can you tell me about an assistive technology that will cover X, Y, and Z and help with this too? He's like, that's not how you Google search. And I'm like, hey, it yields results. I also just ask my AI now to do it for me.
Right. Okay, just a couple of things. Let me share out my screen. It's a simple slide to kind of summarize what's coming up. And you should see it. So obviously the summit. So I believe we're going to see a lot of you there. I'm really looking forward to meeting everybody. Want to draw your attention, in case you missed it in emails or other announcements. So Easter Seals Arkansas's Enabling Tech Smart Home is having an open house from 2 to 5 on Monday. So if you're arriving early for the conference, there's a registration link that I sent out. If you didn't see that, email me. I'll get that to you. Already have, I think, over 35 people who have registered to come to the Smart Home. So I think that's going to be a great place to meet people and see some great tech that they have in place. And then the summit reception and kind of early registration is at 5:30 at the Little Rock Marriott. And then all day Tuesday is the conference. Alaina's speaking, Annie's speaking. We've got a lot of folks coming from across the country to speak on topics. I talked about all that on Tuesday. We're not doing a speaker series next week because a lot of us are going to stick around in Arkansas for a few extra days to meet with providers and such. And then the next Thursday is Thanksgiving. We will resume this speaker series on December 5th. I sent an email out this morning asking you for topics of what you might want to learn about. So if you have any suggestions, let us know. Just respond to my email and we will find somebody who can speak on the topic. I think the next one teed up for the 5th to be confirmed is how to best manage all of the passwords and logins and dashboards and all of the things that come with putting in some of the electronic technology that when you've got a large organization and you need multiple people accessing stuff, some best practices around that. So that'll be one of the upcoming topics. I hope to have it in place for December 5th. I think that's all I had. So until we meet you next week, I hope everybody has a great weekend. Take care.
Thank you.